Hey y'all, and welcome back to Joey's Booked. Today we are going to be doing episode 2 of my third time tries. How do I talk about this book in hopes of finding? Oh my god, I'm not trying to talk right now. Now I can't. Where was that? So to say. I'm not reviewing this very well. So this is my second episode of Third Time Tries, where I am reading authors for the third time in hopes of finding a new favorite. We are in March of 2025, and I think I did my first episode back in September of 2024 or sometime around then. I did really enjoy that episode, even though I didn't find any favorites. But then I went on my hiatus for a little bit, never got around to doing my next episode. And I've had quite a few authors that have built up to where I want to read them for the third time. And I've been putting off their books and not picking up more books from these authors because I've wanted to do another video like this. So finally we are going to get around to it. But the other reason is it is March and I am in a 5-star drought. So what better way to maybe look for a 5-star than read from authors who I've really enjoyed in the past. Now I've got quite a few authors that fit into this category, so it may kind of depend on what I can get on some audio and things like that. I know I could read from authors like Josh Malerman. We've got Nat Cassidy, because Rest Stop is out now, so that's an option. Julia Armfield, who will almost definitely get read in this one, because I've been trying to get to Private Rights since I got an art copy back in like November. I know there's Grady Hendrix I could read from again. Who else? Technically, I think I have some thriller authors. I've got Ruth Ware, which whatever, but if it gives me an excuse to get some books on my shelf. Another big one would be Margaret Atwood, technically, because I've read both The Handmaid's Tale and The Testaments, even though they're kind of part of the same series. I love to think that she's a favorite author, and I have like 8 or 9 of her books. Haven't read anything since then, so I would really like to get back to her too. So to start the video out, I think, based off of what I could find on audio and already had here, I think we're going to start with Josh Malerman and read Bird Box. Now, I've got another Josh Malerman here. I think I've also got Goblin, but this is his big one that I've really wanted to read for a minute. I've never watched the movie version of this, even though it went crazy on Netflix when it came out. So I think this is where we're going to start. And all I really know about this is it's like there's monsters, it's post-apocalyptic kind of, and people can't see. They have to blindfold themselves, and that's really all I know and all I want to know. I know there's also a sequel to this if I like this one. I've had mixed success with Josh Malerman in the past, but he's one that I know there's got to be a 5-star out there somewhere for me. So my first experience with Josh Malerman was a few years ago when I read A House at the Bottom of a Lake. And I only gave it, I don't know, like 2-3 stars. It wasn't great for me. I wanted more from the story, but there were parts that I really liked. And then last year I read Incidents Around the House. And I loved Incidents Around the House. I think that was a 4-star for me though. It was either 4 or 4.5. It was really close. I think there was a few things I wanted more from it, if I remember correctly. But it was really close to a 5-star if it didn't quite hit that mark. So I'm really hopeful that Bird Box can maybe click with that itch. So it is a pretty short read. I've read like the first couple of pages of it so far. So I'm going to jump into this and see how we're feeling, and I'll try to remember to update you partway through. Alright, so I just got home from work, and I did want to go ahead and give an update for Bird Box. So I think I'm about 89 pages into it so far, and I am absolutely loving it. I didn't really think that I was going to get the full hype on what this story is, because I've heard so many good things about it, heard really good things about the movie adaptation and all of that, but it's really working for me. It's kind of given me back when like I read The Watchers, and the fact that I'm really feeling some of the suspense. So Bird Box, we are following Mallory and her two children, who I believe are around like 4 or 5 years old, is what it said, and they are in this like post-apocalyptic kind of world where basically if you are outside or really anywhere and you see whatever these creatures or whatever that have kind of caused this situation are, it makes you go crazy and violently like unalive yourself. So basically, when anyone goes out into the world, they are like blindfolded or set where they can't see, because otherwise this is going to happen to you, and it's not going to be very pleasant. With them being blindfolded the whole time, it is so unsettling because you have limited information. And I think this is something I'm just learning that I really love about Mallerman. Mallerman is so good at writing these stories where you have bits and pieces of the story. You have little bits of detail, but you don't get the full picture. You have to kind of figure out even the full picture yourself, and it makes it that much more suspenseful. That's what I really enjoyed about Incidents Around the House, is because we were from the kid's perspective, yeah, there were other things going on we could tell, but we didn't have the full story, and we had limited knowledge overall. And I'm really loving that in Bird Box. I just want to keep picking it up. I want to keep reading it. I actually was feeling the tension while reading it, and I never kind of get that feeling for my horror. So when I do get it, it's such a big deal. It's really good so far. I'm really hopeful this stays on this track of maybe being my first 5-star of the year, which is going to be crazy since it's a bit of an older backlist. I was really kind of expecting maybe one of my new releases to maybe hit that point for me. So I'm going to keep reading, and I will check back in once I've read more and have more to update on. So I have some really exciting news, and unexpectedly a little bit, I have finally found my first 5-star of the year with Bird Box. I have been searching for months. I didn't expect that the first thing I picked up for this video to be a 5-star, which is kind of why I started with this. So it always makes it that much more exciting when there's something new. I loved this. There was something about this that I really just couldn't put down, and there was an eeriness to it where we're just following and we're not sure of everything going on. It's kind of unreliable because there's no like full description of what's going on. So much is behind a blindfold. And I will say, whenever I was reading it, I wasn't sure if I was going to give it a 5-star really up until about the time I finished. It was kind of giving those 5-star feels, but like I felt like something was going to go wrong. So I do think it's kind of a soft one. It's just one of those, I'm going with my gut on it. I don't want to give like the first book of this video a 5-star without it being one. I did get 5-star vibes while reading it, but no, there's something about some of the humanity in this that is shown, especially with it being kind of post-apocalyptic. There's something about just that eerie factor of not fully knowing what's going on behind the scenes. And there's just, I don't know, Mallerman just did a really good job. There were things that normally would bug me in writing that kind of work because of the setting. The perspective that we see is very limited. Not only because of the blindfold, but because we don't really know what the creatures in this situation are. We know what the characters think happen. They know that they are still testing theories and they are exploring these ideas. But in the end, there's only so much we even find out. And with these dual timelines, I was kind of with, because I really liked finding out the past when everything starts. If it's a post-apocalyptic story, I love watching it unfold. But then we are also in this present where it's Mallory and her two children, and they are trying to go down this river as they are leaving where they've been staying for the past however many years. There were some really creepy moments in that because it's all blindfolded and it's them on their own with limited knowledge, but I didn't feel like as much was happening. This is not going to be for every person. A lot of people are going to be underwhelmed because there is so much information withheld that you don't find out also. I am fine with that. I'm fine with it being a little ambiguous. I am fine with it not being fully answered. It just makes me want to jump back in. This does have a sequel, which is Mallory, which I heard not the greatest things about, and kind of like it was an unnecessary sequel. But I do really want to read it now. So it is something I'm going to be looking out for if I see it, because I held off on buying it until I finally read it. This is now my highest rated Josh Malerman. This is probably my favorite out of his, and I am now really excited to pick up more of his works. So this is a great start to this video, and I am so excited. Now, I think we might actually be keeping up with some of the post-apocalyptic vibes, because my next book is probably my most anticipated book of the year, and I just can't wait any longer to get to it, and that is going to be The Unworthy by Augustina Bazterrica. I love this author so much. This is her third book that has been translated to English. This is originally in Spanish. She is an Argentinian author. This is the same author as Tender Is the Flesh, which is one of my all-time favorite books of all time, and I know it's not for everyone, and people get frustrated with it, whatever. It's amazing to me. I did read 19 Claws and a Blackbird, and I will say it was a short story collection, and it didn't fully work. I don't know if I gave it 2 or 3 stars now. I kind of don't fully remember it, but there were things about it that I enjoyed. But what I do know is that Bazterrica just has a way of talking about humanity. From the very limited knowledge that I'm going into with this, I am hoping for a similar kind of story. All I really know is it's supposed to be culty, which is terrifying to go into, because I historically do not love culty things. The only book featuring anything somewhat culty that I can think of that I've really enjoyed was Mary by Nat Cassidy, and that was kind of part of what took the book down for me. I don't think I've read many other things with a cult that I really like. I don't even fully know what that is. I do know it's also post-apocalyptic, and I think this is more like an ecological kind of apocalypse from my understanding. I am really excited to get into this. I'm expecting, just from this cover, there's going to be some kind of themes on religion, maybe. I'm just excited to get into it. This one is pretty short, so depending on how quick I read it or how invested I get into it, since it is a Bazterrica, I might try to update, but I'm not going to make any promises. So I'll update you once I've read some of The Unworthy, and hopefully I'll love this one too. Alright, I probably look super grungy, and I don't care, because we are going to do an update in bed. What I am really excited about is that I did go ahead and finish The Unworthy. Oh my gosh. I did not know what I was going to say about this book up until about the time that I finished it. This is unique. How do I talk about this book? So we are following an unnamed narrator in The Unworthy, and she is part of this sisterhood, or this cult. The apocalypse has happened. The world has been, like, ravaged. So basically, humans kind of didn't take care of the world, and then nature retaliated back. So, and it's years and years into that happening. So our narrator was, like, already born into this world as everything was finally falling apart. So she was born into poverty. You don't really find out her whole past until the book starts to go, because it's kind of set up similar to The Handmaid's Tale, is what it reminded me of in the way that it was told, because it's supposed to be like little notes and things that she has written down and hidden, so like the other people in the sisterhood don't find it. So she is one of the unworthy, which is like the lowest of this cult other than like the servants. And she has at least been like brought in as one of these unworthy because she hasn't been like contaminated by whatever's going on out in the world. All of like nature and stuff has essentially been contaminated, except in like this almost like monastery that they're staying in. They've got enough to, I guess, feed whoever is there, and there is some nature, but it's not very alive, but it's more so alive than the rest of the world. And it's following our narrator and her journey to become enlightened. So there's like a class system within this cult. It's not based around like modern day religion. I'm assuming that it's really kind of pointing at like Catholicism, since this is set in Argentina, but it's talking about how like that is not true, or like, you know, like people aren't allowed to believe in that anymore because they're part of this cult, and it's like everything this cult says is what it is. And it's basically, this cult is run by a man, and then every other person is a woman. They don't accept children, they don't accept really anyone other than women that haven't been contaminated. And then they can be like brought up as like the enlightened and all of this other stuff. It's a lot to explain. And I feel like I'm probably giving more away than is in the synopsis. I haven't even said my rating. We got another 5-star, and it's not going to be a 5-star for everyone. There's this thing with Bastarika where all of her stuff is translated by Sarah Moses. And I don't know if, like, there's something that gets lost in translation or whatever, but I feel like there's a lot of nuance that is missed sometimes. And sometimes we get these really, like, weird, blocky sentences, and the flow doesn't always flow the way it's supposed to. But also because it's still done in an understandable way, and because this is written as, like, these, like, notes and things on pieces of cloth and paper, there's also almost like this fever dreaming stream of consciousness to it. Because sometimes, like, even at the end, like, it will just cut off, like, mid-sentence at the end of a section. I remember that was a big critique I had in 19 Claws and a Blackbird, is I felt like something was lost in translation. Even then, there is such a description of humanity in Bastarika's writing. This is not just a culty book. There is almost, like, this look at humanity, and the extents that humanity will go to for its own needs of survival, but also the look of how humanity will last in these situations. Because our narrator has a lot more of her humanity left than the others that are, like, in this cult. But we also see how people in power will tear down and break down that humanity for their own cause. There is a sense of what makes us human in this book, whether it is love or our past experiences. There are some really hard topics and depictions of things in here, which for me, I absolutely loved. If you are an animal lover, this may not be for you. There are some creepy animal scenes. There are some dark scenes. There are some really dark scenes. There was this scene with a possum. Our character doesn't always know what these animals are because they're not around anymore, or there's not many of them. So they described it as a giant rat with a black and white face. So I'm assuming it was a possum. But that scene, whatever that was about, there's so much in it. I don't fully have the words. I'm not reviewing this very well, but there was just something so good, and like I want to reread this. I almost actually want to annotate this, which I don't annotate at all, but like I would almost want another copy of this to annotate. There is just something in this that is just that full 5-star. This is my favorite thing I've read. I am so happy that my most anticipated book of the whole year is a 5-star. And I'm going to be thinking about this book a lot, and just all of these little things in it that I want to go back and look at. This is just me really doing a ridiculously long update where I gush over a book that I have a feeling a lot of people may not like. But those are usually my best 5-stars, are the ones that aren't the popular. I will say, I do think I like Tyndare's the Flesh more, because almost the whole time I was reading this, I was like, what is going on? And it took me a long time to get enveloped, and it took me a little bit to read it. Still a 5-star for me. If you like dark and weird and unhinged, if you like just dark explorations into what it is to be a human, this might be for you. But I'm not going to wildly recommend this one out. we're having some luck. 2 5-stars in a row. I have at least 2 to 3 more books I really could read for this, which is ridiculous because this is a 3rd time try. I was going to try to read 3 books. I'm having success, so we're going to see how it goes and how long it takes me to read. I think the next thing I'm going to try to pick up is Private Rights by Julia Armfield. Another book I've been trying to get to since it came out. I have 2 copies of this book because I have an ARC that I got for the American edition, but never got to. But I also brought the British edition because it released in the UK first. And I bought that on Blackwell's because I couldn't wait to read it, didn't get to it. And then I got an ARC on accident on Goodreads after I had already bought it because I guess I was already entered in the drawing. Didn't get to it, even though they sent it to me like right before it released, so I wouldn't have been able to read it early anyways. But I think I'm going to finally read it. It's on my 25 for 2025. Julia Armfield is right up there like Baz Tariqa as an author I think is going to be a favorite. And yeah, I'll probably talk more on if I decide that. If I don't and I decide, because it's also kind of post-apocalyptic from my understanding. If I'm not feeling it, I might pick up Rest Stop by Nat Cassidy because that's a little short one. And I would also really like to read it because I've been trying to get to it for pretty much since it came out a few months ago. So I will keep you updated on whatever I go for. I'm at least going to try to fit those 2 in this video, maybe 1 more. This might be kind of a long 3rd time's a try. We're going to do it based off how my ratings are going. So, yeah, I'm going to pick up one of those probably tomorrow because I'm tired, I'm in bed. But I will let you know. We are back because we have finally started our 3rd book of this video, which is Private Rights by Julia Armfield. Julia Armfield, I like to think, has the potential to be a complete favorite author for me. In the past, I have read 2 books by Julia Armfield. Last year, for my queer reading vlog that I did like last June, I did read her short story collection, Salt Slow, and I believe I gave this around a 3-star. It was a short story collection. It's usually somewhere between a 2 and a 4, just depending on how much I enjoyed the collection. And then I also have read Our Wives Under the Sea, which is an all-time favorite, 5-star, one of my favorites I've ever read. In Private Rights, I am on part 2 now, which is actually about like, I think according to the audiobook I'm following along with, I think it says 58% of the way through. So in this we are following 3 sisters, Isla, Irene, and Agnes. And they are dealing with the loss of their father, who has recently passed away. But this is all taking place in a post-apocalyptic society. Now, this one is a little bit different than The Unworthy, because in The Unworthy it was like ecological apocalypse, where like everything was dried up, there was no land, or at least in the area that our characters were. In this one, it is set to where there has been massive rainfall and everything is flooding, and I think it's a little more recent into the apocalyptic kind of situation. They have started to have to build structures that can kind of sit atop the water because most of the land is gone except for some like big hillsides. We don't really have a whole lot of information though on that situation, and I'm not really fully sure as of right now why we are like even set in some kind of post-apocalyptic other than maybe some symbolism. What I've loved about Julia Armfield in the past with Our Wives Under the Sea was there was a horror element that was symbolized, also the loss and grief that was in that book, and the characters and the writing, and there were so many great things. And there's a lot of that kind of stuff happening in here. We're talking about grief, we're talking about some symbolism, I guess, as far as water again, and how that deals with grief and stuff. But like, I feel like I'm missing the writing that I saw in both of the other books that I've read from her. I feel like she's tried to go a little bit more mainstream and just make a big family drama over this happened with our dad, or we have this crappy relationship between the 3 sisters, and which is fine. I'm not connecting like I have, and it's really, really bogging me down because I don't care about any of these sisters. None of them are super compelling. Sometimes I find it hard to even really tell them apart. Not that they don't have a lot of character description and stuff, but they're not as different as they're being made out to be for me. I'm not connecting with those elements like I want to. However, reaching part 2, I'm hoping we're going, in the last half of this book, going to dive more into this apocalyptic kind of scenario. And maybe more than just, oh, our dad died, but we also hated our dad, but we also hate each other, but we're gonna keep dealing with each other. And it's almost bratty. It's very queer, which I normally do love, but I also find it kind of interesting that all 3 of these sisters are in some form of a queer relationship, which we're also watching them deal with. I think that's awesome representation. I don't know if it's the most realistic representation as a queer person myself. Not that, like, multiple siblings can't be queer. It seems almost stretched the way it's being portrayed, in my opinion. I'm gonna keep pushing through. I am slogging, though, and, like, the audiobook for this one is only, like, 8 hours long, which really isn't too bad since this is almost a 300-page book. We're gonna keep pressing through because I do want to complete it. I do want this to be my 3rd book. I'm just a bit disappointed so far. So once I've finished, I'll give you an update, and this may actually end up being my last one of this video, and I may do a 3rd episode of this sometime in the future for some of the books I really wanted to get to, because I'm not going to get this video up if I pick up a 4th one, probably. Check back in soon. So it's later the same night, and I've finally finished Private Rights by Julia Armfield, and I think I'm gonna land on 3 stars for this. Literally just finished this, like, it's almost midnight. I've not been done with it very long. But this just wasn't what I wanted it to be, and I'm just disappointed because of that. I love Armfield's literary writing. I really think she normally knows how to blend in some weird and horror and queer and all of these things together so well, but this felt like it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. There's definitely some of the inspiration from King Lear in there. I'm not a Shakespeare reader, so I don't remember. I know I read it when I was in high school at some point. I don't remember it, but I did kind of look back up just the general synopsis, so I can see that it's in there, probably more so than I recognize. But then the post-apocalyptic stuff just felt so pointless almost, other than just to be convenient symbolism. I wanted it to feel like there was more of a reason to be there. Or I wanted it to be more explored, and I wanted more to happen with it. There was even one point where there was, like, the supposed rumor that was brought up in, like, one sentence, and I'm like, that would have made this more interesting and still achieved the same kind of end goal. The ending of this was just kind of, what the heck is going on? Like, there were parts of it where it was set up, but the whole, like, rights and culty kind of aspect of this, and that's even in the title, didn't show up until, like, the last maybe 20-30 pages. And even then, it wasn't that much. Like, I thought this was supposed to have, like, people going back to, like, some pagan rituals and stuff like that. I don't know if I read this wrong, or if I heard that wrong somewhere, or what. But, like, yeah, at the very beginning it says, arcane rituals and religions have crept back into practice. Where was that? What rituals were going on? Because nothing happened with any of that until the very ending. So I spent the whole book waiting for it to happen. That's a miss market, pretty much, for me. And I hate to talk about this author this way, because she's written one of my all-time favorite books, but, like, I don't know if it's her, I don't know if it's the team behind it, but it was not it. It was just so much family drama of just, like I said in my last update, all these sisters hate each other, but they also hate the dad, and I get the whole King Lear, like, put his daughters against each other, whatever. Come on now. Like, I'm so just upset about it that I almost want to rate it lower, and I'm not going to, because it's not an objectively bad book. And I know part of it's me. And I mean, it wasn't great. It was just so all over the place. It was so stream of conscious. I normally love Julius Armfield's prose. I love the lyricalness, and I felt like so much of that was lost in here. And I hate that I'm ending this with a rant. I'm gonna give it 3. It's not the worst thing I've read this year. It just left me frustrated, and part of that is me. And part of that was the expectation I had going in, or what I thought it was going to be. All of the books in this video, they were so different. They were such different takes on this apocalyptic vibes, and that wasn't even what I was going through going for whenever I started this video. Some of these weren't even books I was originally planning on reading. I'm gonna have to do another third time to try vlog just to fit in some of the books I didn't get to. Private Rights just has me really upset right now. It's late, I'm tired. I think we're gonna call it a vlog. So in this vlog, just quick recap, everything I read is right here. So we read Bird Box, which was a 5-star. The Unworthy, which was also a 5-star and really close to being a favorite. I have not stopped thinking about this. And then Private Rights, which unfortunately only made a 3-star. Which is kind of a crappy way to end it in comparison to how well this video was going. This is my most successful vlog of the year so far, and we now have 2 5-stars for 2025, which seems finally like a bit of a delay, but a good start. So if you've watched up to this point, thank you so much. Please, if you haven't already, like this video, subscribe down below. Anything that helps push this content out is so much help. And just thank you for being here. Let me know down below in the comments, if you made it this far, what was your most recent 5-star read? I don't care the genre, I don't care who it's by, what it is, let me know. Or recommend me an author, maybe. One of your favorite authors. Obviously, I'm reading ones I've been reading from quite a bit, but I want some of your favorites. Put all that in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching to this point. And I will see you in another video coming here very soon. Alright, bye.